Hey everyone, it's Laura and this is Mobility from the Grounds Up. Today we are working on overhead range of motion. Like this would be the let's reach for the highest shelf in the place, or let's get the dust bunnies in the corner. I don't know why I always refer to household chores, but those are the things that I think of. So what I want you to do starting off here is you can sit however you're comfortable on the floor. You may also notice I have some props here. I have a rolled up yoga mat. I have a couple yoga blocks, and then I have a Bosu ball. So basically I just have different heights of firm objects. So you could have like a firm cushion, or if you have a yoga block, you could do that. You could use a stack of books instead of yoga blocks as well. We just want to have an option to elevate a couple of the exercises today. You grab those, have them nearby. And then I'm going to show this from the side position. If you have a mirror at home, that would also be very helpful. Sometimes we can see things that we can't necessarily feel. So what I'm going to have you do, I'm going to have you take one arm and reach overhead. You can try and reach all the way overhead, or kind of out front. But you're moving through that range of motion. I'm going with my arms straight the whole way from the ground until I get my wrist and elbow above my shoulder, or approximately above my shoulder. I'm on my right side here, and I'm going to go on my left side a few times each side. And right now, I'm just asking you to feel how this feels. Many of the students I've worked with, it's uncomfortable to reach overhead. It doesn't feel great on the shoulders. And that's okay. All right. We're going to take this move down to the floor. And I'm going to put this yoga mat under my head for a little neck support. Use that if you'd like, or something equivalent, a pillow if you'd like to. Feet are going to be flat on the floor. I'm going to have my feet a little bit wider than my hips are about hip width, and then let my knees fall together. So that's going to look like this. So I don't have to worry about my lower body here. Just kind of relaxing down here. And then we're going to do that same motion from while lying on our back. So the general direction we want to go is reaching toward the floor. You may not touch the floor, that's okay. And let's go to the other side. Does it feel different on this side? You might have noticed when we were doing this sitting up that we had a little bit of difference from right to left, or maybe a lot of difference from right to left. And what I'm going to have you do now is, I was already doing it, so you might have noticed me doing this, and if not, that's okay, because now you will. I'm going to move my right arm first, but I'm going to put my left hand on the right side of my rib cage. So kind of like the bottom, if you find your sternum, the bottom of the sternum, and then slide over. So you're kind of hugging the bottom of the right side of your rib cage over here. And you're going to do that same motion. And I want you to notice if your rib cage moves as you do this. So I'll show you what it looks like for your rib cage to move. You'll notice that my position changes a little bit. I arch a little bit. And then do that same thing on the other side. And so I've got my right hand on the left side of my rib cage. And I'm going to move my left arm. And again, we're noticing if the rib cage lifts up off the ground. And if your rib cage does lift up, I'm going to exaggerate this, you're going to notice a really big arch right here in your lumbar spine, likely. So I'm really exaggerating it here. You may or may not do that. And if you don't do it, that's wonderful. But if you do arch in order to get your thumb to the floor. What I want you to do here is put that, we're going to go back to the first side, left hand on the right side of the rib cage, and reach over. And I want you to only reach as far as you can go without any rib cage motion. So if you didn't have any rib cage motion to start with, and you were already touching your thumb to the floor, keep working on that. I'll give you something else here in a moment. But if your rib cage lifts at all, stop there, because that's the end of your shoulders range of motion. And so in the world of reaching up overhead, if I were to sit back up, this is as far without arching as this, that I could go without arching my back. So in order to really work on this overhead reach, we need to know how far can we, and track our progress, how far can you reach without your rib cage helping you get the appearance of your arm reaching straight up. So let's go, if you haven't done the other side with that, because our shoulders, you may have noticed that difference from right to left. So now go to your second side again. And again, notice, if you're not arching and your thumb's able to get to the floor without arching at all, great. I'm excited for you. You've got pretty good shoulder range of motion. But if you find yourself having to arch or even turn your elbows to get farther, that's a big one, then let's just focus on that rib cage now, on how far can you go without the rib cage moving and tilting around. So right now we've been spending quite a bit of time kind of maybe not diagnosing is the right word, but figuring out, discovering how far can your shoulder move, how far can it reach to get overhead. And we've broken down, okay, your rib cage may be tilting back to get that overhead reach. We're gonna come sit up again. I'm gonna sit cross-legged here. If you need something under your hips, you can sit comfortably. We're gonna do the same thing that we did the first time here, just so you can start to see this here. Hand on the rib cage and then lift up. If you notice the rib cage tilting backwards, stop there. That's your overhead range of motion. So I can go about right here, so it's not completely overhead. And I can come back down. So really think about moving from the shoulder. The shoulder blade will move too, but we don't want the whole rib cage to tilt backwards, to move anymore. This is what it'll look like if you tilt backwards to reach overhead. Let's do the other side. So right hand on that left side of the rib cage. I'll show you from the front view too, so you can see it. And then we're reaching up. Nice. If you feel any tipping back of the torso, tipping back of the rib cage, then stop your range of motion there. So we reach. How far can we go without getting that rib cage tilting back as well? All right, how do your shoulders feel? Let's shake out a little bit, roll the shoulders. The reason why this is important to figure out if your rib cage is moving forward and back is because we want to have, a lot of times our spine, if that rib cage is tilting, then it's our spine extending, likely extending as we lean back to get us better reach. But it's not that shoulder range of motion. So we want to improve that today. I'm going to use my 2 yoga blocks to start here. So this is kind of like my mid-height piece of equipment here. And I'm going to put my elbows on top of these. So I'm going to have my elbows right here on my yoga blocks. If you don't have the yoga blocks or books of the same height, you can put them on the floor too. It's just kind of allows you to move a little bit differently here as we're on the yoga blocks. So you're going to walk your knees back as we go. We keep walking back, walking back. So now my elbows are in front of my shoulders and my hips are still above my knees. So this is a gentle way to get a stretch here. And you could do this up on a couch or a chair as well. And if you have high blood pressure and want to keep or get dizzy or have vertigo, being up on a little bit higher surface will keep your head above your heart so you don't have that blood rushing to your head. But you're walking your knees back and we're trying to get a little bit more range of motion. Right now I'm doing 2 arms. Now for some people, doing 2 arms at one time is too much. So if it feels like, oh, that's a lot of pressure and stretch and a lot of tension in my shoulders, you can come back to the start position on 1 arm and then keep the other one down on the floor to the kind of the side and then walk the knees back. And that might feel better to do that. You can even bring your other yoga block in if you're using yoga blocks. You could also use cushions or pillows. So that we're really just working 1 arm at a time. All right. If you're still doing 2 arms, you can come out of it. If you were doing that 1 arm at a time, then let's go to the second arm. I'm gonna put my left elbow up on the yoga block with my shoulder above it. I'm gonna slowly back my knees up and get set here. So this is all about that left shoulder now. And the reason why we're backing up the knees and keeping kind of the hips above the knees is because we want to not have all of the weight of the lower body resting on the upper body too. This is nice. It should feel like you have a stretch here, but we shouldn't have to hold our breath or anything here. Nice. All right, let's come out of that for a moment. And the next thing that we're going to do, because it's not just our shoulders that need to have great mobility when we're doing an overhead reach, we also need to have great shoulder blade mobility as well. So when you reach up overhead, once you reach a certain point, the shoulder blades kind of go out a little bit. This is my hands, pretend my hands are on your back, and the shoulder blades will move out like that. So we're going to put our hands on flat on the floor, shoulders above the wrist, hips above the knees. If your wrists bother you in this position, put that rolled up yoga mat or cushion, put the heels of the hands up there and the fingers down on the ground, and that'll take some of the pressure away. If it feels all right, what I'm going to have you do is look at that spot in between your 2 thumbs and then let your torso kind of sink in between your shoulders. So your shoulder blades are coming together as the torso moves down in between the shoulders. And then you're gonna push into the ground and let your shoulder blades spread apart. This is a little bit hard to see from this angle, but and you can keep working on it. But if you need a little bit more of a visual, imagine that my hands are shoulder blades. What I want your shoulder blades to do are move together toward the spine and then move apart from each other. So they're moving together and apart. And then, so when that torso moves down in between, so it's like your chest is moving down in between the shoulders. Those are the shoulder blades moving together and toward the spine. And then when you press into the ground, that'll usually spread the shoulder blades wide. So keep working on this. I'll often call this a shoulder blade push-up. A couple things to watch for here are to see, are you bending your elbows? A lot of times in the shoulder blade push-up, people will bend their elbows. And if you bend your elbows and your shoulders come together, that's likely that those two moves are coupled for your body. So we want to be able to get the shoulder blades to move independently of the elbows. So shoulder blades together, shoulder blades apart. How does this feel? Is there much, does it feel like much motion here? May or may not, and that's okay. But just know that even trying to get your shoulder blades to move together and apart, you're trying to wake up this area between the shoulder blades, which for many people I've worked with is an area that we have great mind-muscle connection. So it's not uncommon for, if you try that, if this is the first time you're trying this move, to not have much motion or to feel like you can't control the motions. Just keep working on it. Come back and watch the replay on YouTube if you need to. We're gonna now kind of bring that shoulder blade motion with the shoulder motion together. I like to do this on a slightly higher surface. If you liked kind of the yoga block or book height surface, you could do that. Again, you can put your elbows. Ottoman is a great place to do this. I just don't have access to an ottoman here. So I'm going to use this like I would like a seat cushion or an ottoman. And we're going to put our elbows up on to, I'm on a BOSU right now. Whatever your surface is, put your elbows up there. And then again, you're going to walk your knees back. This is similar to the one that we did earlier, but then you're going to let your shoulder blades come together and let your head move through your arms as you stretch out through here, and then let those shoulder blades move toward each other. You might also notice I'm going to put my head on the BOSU. It's not going all the way through because of my shoulder range of motion today. And then while you're here, keep breathing. And then we're gonna bring in that shoulder blade apart. So I let you kind of relax, let your shoulder blades come together in this. And now what you're going to do is push your elbows into the surface you're on, and it'll kind of pull your shoulder blades apart. Just pushing into your surface will bring your shoulder blades slightly apart. And then relax. Push your elbows into the surface again. And then relax, shoulder blades will likely come together. Push again, shoulder blades move apart a little bit. And then relax. Likely your shoulder blades move together. And then slowly walk your knees forward. And do a couple shoulder rolls. That one, if you kind of are able to get that push and relax, a lot of times it really gets things moving a little bit differently. All right, we're now going to, so we pushed and relaxed. So we're trying to work on building that strength as well as simultaneously as we work on the mobility. So now we're going to work on some, we're gonna use crawling here. So we're gonna use the backwards crawl in order to work on this pushing motion, which is actually like an overhead motion, like a reaching overhead motion. So building strength through the shoulders as we push the floor away from us. So you're going to walk your right hand back and left knee back. So it's kind of very much like your walking pattern. And as we do that, we're pushing with the left hand to push us back. And then we push with the right hand as the left hand goes back. So we're pushing. I might push part of myself off screen here. And then you're going to crawl forward. I started with backwards, but we're going to crawl forward. So now it's almost like your hands stuck in something sticky. You're going to pull yourself forward with your hand on the ground. Still opposite arm, opposite leg. All right, so we're going to go backward again. That's pushing motion. So if you didn't before, think about engaging your core and push yourself back. Can you do this slow? How does crawling feel here today? When was the last time you crawled? Really feels nice. Shoulder mobility and stability if we do it nice and controlled. I'm gonna crawl forward again. And it's almost like I'm pulling myself forward with my hand and pushing myself with my leg. Good. All right, we're gonna do one more time backward. Start with the other side this time. So I'm gonna push with my right hand, push myself back. So I'm really pushing. The bigger of the crawl stride that I have, if you will, the more overhead range of motion that I get. Coming back on here. Nice. All right. So we're going to actually use to work on this overhead range of motion some more. I'm gonna have you use if you have a book at home, that's great. Or a yoga block works well. I'm not too picky here about what we use, but we want it to be no, we don't want it to be too wide or too narrow. So a yoga block's a nice width. I'm gonna put something under my head again. That same position we did when we were trying to figure out what was our shoulder range of motion. So feet are about hip width apart and the knees fall together and relax. I'm gonna hold on to the yoga block or book. You could even use a pillow at home as long as it's not like a foldable pillow. You still want to firmer is better here. Book would work. And what we're going to do is work on our overhead motion again, but this time we have that block in between our hands or whatever it may be, and we're just giving it a gentle squeeze. And I also want you to notice here, is your rib cage lifting up off the floor as we go through this motion? And if it is, if you go nice and slow, I want you to stop if you feel your spine arch in order to get you in lower. So if you hit the end range of motion for your shoulders and you start using the spine, that's where I want you to stop. Let's do one more. Nice. We're gonna go back to our one arm version so you can set the block down. And this time on the one arm version, what I'm gonna have you do, just to challenge your shoulder in a different way, I'm going to have you turn this is what I call the elbow pit. So the elbows back here, the elbow pits in the front. And I want you to do that same motion that if you pretend I'm on the ground here, I'll do it on the ground in a second, but that same motion with the elbow pit oriented in that direction the whole time. All right. A lot of times what I see on these is that the elbow pit will rotate inward to get the range of motion. So I want to see what your shoulder range of motion is now. With a more, if your elbow does turn out, this is going to put it in a more externally rotated position. Most of us aren't as strong in that position. All right, so here's my elbow pit. Reach. See how far you can go. If you're reaching here, I want your elbow pit to face toward the floor. How far can you go here? I don't care really where your hand is facing, but pay attention to that elbow pit. Let's just do 3 on each side. You might notice that your arm really wants to turn, or that once it stops, it can't go as far. So our brain is like, Laura's telling me to reach overhead here. So I'm going to do whatever it takes, and our body will do whatever it takes to reach the floor overhead. But now we have parameters. That rib cage doesn't tilt. We don't use this. Okay, we don't use the spine. And now that elbow pit stays in this orientation. All right, that was 3. That feels like plenty to me. For most people, that'll make it a lot harder. And then I'm going to have you do the same thing on the second side. We'll do 3 each side. You can put your hand back on the rib cage, on the side of the rib cage, if that helps you figure out where your rib cage was or what it was doing. Nice. All right, we're going to do one more stretch before we come back to that one to finish off. And this is our typical tricep stretch, except we're going to make it a little bit different here. We did something similar when we were up here on the BOSU. Now, you're going to put your hand back behind you and start with your elbow low. So you're going to start here, and then you're going to push your elbow up. And what I want you to notice is, where is your hand at? Because I wanted you to rotate your elbow pit so it's oriented a certain direction on that last move. So in this move, in order to help us make that easier and loosen the tension here, I'm going to instead of having your hand on your spine, kind of crossing the midline, put your hand right behind your shoulder. Can you see how it's like my hand is hiding, my forearm is hiding behind my upper arm here? I'll turn around and show you as well. So from the side, it looks like this. And from the rear view, it looks like this. You can hold that for a little bit. A different angle on the tricep stretch. A lot of us are so tight, we go into that elbow pit facing inward, and we might like move around this and tilt around as well. All right, let's do the other side. So hand right behind the shoulder, elbow starts low, and then we use that hand to push it into place. Notice that my hand stays behind my shoulder. Again, we're trying to get nice length through here. Sometimes we get so tight there. We've done that several ways already. We've done it on the yoga block, with our elbows on the yoga blocks. We did it with our elbows up on that higher surface. All right, let's come back down. And one more time on your back. Last thing here. We'll do both sides, and then we'll try and do it together as well. It's harder when both arms move together. Keep that in mind. So elbow pit stays in that, facing the same direction the whole time. Hopefully you feel like you have a little bit more room here. Working on that range of motion, staying glued into the rib cage position, not getting any help from the spine, just using the shoulder blades and the shoulder joint. Good. All right, a second side. Very nice. Do one more. And then finally, you can do it with 2 hands. If you really want to, you could do it with 2 hands and just kind of watch what happens. There's lots of ways you can play with this. So we're figuring out, again, a lot of the moves we've done are seeing how much shoulder overhead reach we have, but then also it's the testing it is also the exercise. So you can also do it with a block with your elbow pits in that orientation. See how that feels to try and move them together simultaneously and connected via the block. Good. And you can come back to where we started and kind of check in. How does it feel to reach overhead now? If you were reaching for those dust bunnies, I think I said, and that tallest shelf, would it feel a little bit easier now to reach and grab something if you needed it from up overhead. And that's where the rubber really meets the road. It's at home, and this is a great sequence to do too before any overhead strength training you might do to get better shoulder range of motion before you start building strength on that shoulder. All right, everyone, it was great seeing you. I hope your shoulders feel great, and go try and reach for things overhead. All right, until next time.